Welcome to The Craft. I'm your host, May Globus. This podcast is a collection of intimate conversations on artistry, mastery, and life with talented, passionately curious creatives and entrepreneurs. Most are dear friends, some are those I've admired from afar. I hope you enjoy these conversations, this exploration of the humanity that connects all of us, as much as I do having them. Thank you for being here and for listening. Gelareh Darabi is a fascinating human and storyteller. This multi-platform journalist, documentary filmmaker, and international correspondent has worked with National Geographic's Explorer series, Jazeera English, and other media outlets, focusing on science and the environment. She grew up a lover of nature, thanks to her family's outdoor walks together when she was a child. Her natural curiosity and love for oration led her into journalism, where she's covered the Iran water crisis, the Australian bushfires, Indigenous resistance in the Amazon, and more. Gelareh has also always had a deep interest in the mystical and spiritual, a compass that has guided her in life. Please enjoy this episode with the charismatic, otherworldly Gelareh Darabi. Gelareh, welcome to The Craft.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, no, thank you for being here from LA, my second remote guest.
And this is a place that's very significant for you, right?
Yes, my family, all of my family is down there. So,
Yeah.
yes, I miss them. I haven't been able to see them obviously for a while, but hopefully when things open up, I am going there first. See
Yeah.
mom,
I hope I get to
sisters.
see you
Yeah, and visit
when the world
you.
emerges. Yeah.
Yes, yes. We'll have a hang in Venice.
Yes.
Yeah. So I like starting off these things by talking about how we connected. And we connected years ago through our mutual friend Krishna. And over the years and various moves to different parts in the world, we kept connected over social media.
We certainly did. And yeah, it was such a different phase of both of our lives. And it's
Hmm.
so interesting to reconnect in re-emerging, coming out of 2020, so many different experiences, so much growth and maturity. I almost feel like
Hmm.
I'm meeting you again for the first time.
I feel the same way. Yeah. So I'm very excited to deep dive with you. Tell me about your younger years. What was mom like? What was dad like?
Mom and dad are complete opposites. So, mom on one side of the pendulum is extroverted, outgoing, charming, charismatic, spicy, great taste, creative, loves music, loves hosting, loves telling jokes, loves telling inappropriate jokes and getting she just loves making people laugh. She loves cooking. She's warm, and dad on the other side of the pendulum is cerebral and calm and sweet and patient and forgiving
Hmm.
and accepting and mellow and loves Sudoku and crosswords. That's dad, and just has such a beautiful outlook. But I sort of sit in the middle of these two very polar extremes. So, you know, you can imagine that there would have been a lot of, disagreement or compromise or maybe friction in the household, and which is true, living between two polar opposites. But the only
Hmm.
time that we could all beat match and kind of really get on the same page was when we would all go on these big nature walks as a family. So,
Yes.
no matter what the stresses were of being an immigrant family, trying to establish our life here in Canada, not here in Canada, but in Canada, English being second language, two polar opposites with very different views on how life should be, how a child should be raised. It was a hectic place to be, but the nature walks were a moment of quiet, a moment of reflection. It
Hmm.
was a daily practice for my family, and that's when we all got on the same page.
Yeah, and your mother in particular loves nature, right?
Oh my gosh, it's her
Yeah.
church, it's her temple. Experiencing nature with her is like going to church. It's very spiritual.
Hmm.
And the way she's very sentient, she's a Pisces. She's just very all the feels, and just like every flower is a message from an ancestor, and
Yeah.
every, tree has a story that she wants to translate for you. And if heaven forbid she happened to find a piece of garbage, or even worse, somebody throwing a piece of garbage on the path, like, oh my God, find a
Mhm.
bush and hide behind it because it's gonna get spicy.
Yeah.
So she also planted the seed of activism
Mm,
through
mhm.
those journeys.
Mhm. And I want to go back to you talking about these polar opposites and watching it. As you were watching these polar opposites in play, how did that make you feel? Were you confused or were you more of an observer? Like how did you as a young person integrate that?
I almost had like a space-like perspective, because the friction and the chaos and the loud volumes was too much for me. I would really detach and kind of go up into outer space and just hover up in the stratosphere and look down and kind of scratch my head and think, gee, what are these earthlings doing? Why are they getting so worked up over these things? And I would just sort of sit there almost like this out of body entity that would sit there and observe these ants below
Mm,
and kind of scratch my head and think, well, the path is so clear. It's right here. I don't understand why they're busy squabbling over this and that. I really learned how to detach from difficult situations, which didn't serve me so much in life. I've had to work through being present and being in the moment when there is a moment of conflict and disagreement. But as a
mm,
child, it worked really well for my imagination
mhm.
and my sense of security to detach and step up into space, which is probably why I have such a fascination with space and anything to do with outside of this realm.
Right, right. And would you have considered yourself a curious child?
Very curious,
Mhm.
very interested, very kind of almost like a researcher looking at different human interactions as my laboratory,
Mm,
or different kind of um, I was always in the backseat of the car, only child. We used to do a lot of road trips. Like, just I remember just looking out the window and just observing the towns as they would go by, the homes, like who lives there, like,
right.
look at the front of this yard, look at that yard, like the different trees that would go by. Really was a passenger and observer of all kinds of things.
Mhm, mhm. And, I love this you were talking about your mother and, the trees, there's a story that she wants to tell you or about that tree, and so this kind of takes me to your career, which you began here in Canada, right? And you
Hmm.
worked for some major networks, CBC, Global, CTV, spent some time with the National Film Board of Canada, and then found yourself as a correspondent and producer, for Al Jazeera English, some time with National Geographic, Vice, and you focus particularly on science and the environment, correct?
100%.
Yeah, which comes back to your childhood. So were your mother was a storyteller, and do you think that's where you've got this affinity to be a storyteller in your own work?
Absolutely. I mean, I have memories of my mother. Um, she was always hosting parties, which as an introverted child was a little bit annoying. I didn't like people disrupting my space. But I remember maybe I was out at a friend's house coming home, and this entire, like, she'd cram the house with as many people as she could. This entire living room and kitchen and hallway full of people, all just standing and watching my mom. And she would be at the back of the room doing pretty much stand-up comedy, and she would have the whole room in the palm of her hand, and the eruption of laughter and the waves of laughter that would just ripple through the house. So I really learned how to, like, you know, to be a speaker, an orator, a storyteller, a correspondent, having the confidence to even be on camera, to sort of deliver a message using my body, my facial expressions, my eyes, my words that I write.
Mhm.
That comes from her.
Yeah, you're very, very expressive.
It's a cultural thing. It's definitely being my mother's daughter.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, my like regular normal self is quite shy and introverted and mellow and chill. So for
Mhm.
me to be able to summon something up to be able to deliver a message that takes a lot of confidence, I
Mhm.
had an expander, a role model right in front of me to make that happen.
Mhm. I'm curious just because, my mom was married to a Persian man for 14 years, and yeah,
I
um
didn't know that.
no, I thought you knew that. Yeah, so my mom ended up, being a fantastic Persian cook, And so I'm wondering, was your mom as well? And did she have a signature dish?
She's a phenomenal cook. I mean, she has just got this way with food and herbs, particularly if someone is feeling sick or if they're feeling down or if they're just a bit off. She knows the right herbs, the right food, the right amount of lemon to squeeze in your hot water
Mhm.
to really kind of get you back on track. It's a modality of healing for her that and a form of expression. She taught me just really simple, fresh ingredients, really just like quick and easy but amazing food. Her big dishes when she knows she'd have people over were just like would blow everybody's minds. But she just does like a roast chicken beautifully and a beautiful
Mm.
Persian rice, a fragrant rice so nicely.
Mhm.
I think I learned to cook without so many bells and whistles and layers, but to really just do it simple and beautifully.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journalism career. Like when you started and what you learned about yourself in the process as you evolved in this career.
I mean, I was one of those kids who knew what they wanted to do at a very young age. And the spark that kind of sparked it is not as ambitious or professional as you would think, but growing up in a house with an immigrant family trying to find their way, a lot of things going on, I was really starved for attention. And I remember we used to watch the 6 o'clock news every night with dinner. We'd have our dinner in front of the news. And I really wanted, I think, my dad's attention in particular. And we were watching the CBC, and Adrienne Arsenault, brilliant Canadian foreign correspondent, was on camera delivering, a fantastic report as she always does. And my dad just kind of said out loud, that Adrienne Arsenault, she's really talented. She's really something. And I just looked at my dad. I was like, "Well, that's what I want to do,"
Mhm.
just to see how interested and attentive he was to her work. I wanted that attention, and so I would lock myself in the bathroom every night with my hairbrush, just doing the Guillory show, nonstop, just kind of like my mother pounding on the door, like, "What are you doing in there, child?" And that was really what sparked it for me. And I really wasn't good at very many things in school, but writing was about it. It's just like,
Mhm.
she's not good at much, but this is a saving grace.
Right.
And it all just kind of naturally came together for me.
Mhm, mhm. So you've covered stories across, and you can correct me if any of this is wrong, or across 6 continents, 20 countries. You've reported on the Iran water crisis, more recently the Australian bushfires. You've spent time with the indigenous resistance in the Amazon, in the Congo. Have you ever feared for your life or been in a situation that threatened it, or this is just the work you do?
It's just we build up so many narratives about what other cultures are like, about what safety is like in other countries. And when you land on that soil and you connect with the people, you realize life is the same everywhere. And so, yes, there have been some more high risk moments, moments we had to take extra precautions. But I honestly have to say, that's the thing that's had the biggest impact on me and the biggest mind shift is when I'm doing my research, the Western narrative that I have of a place like Afghanistan, that I have of a place like China, that I have of a place like Iran or the Philippines or Haiti. And when I land, just the regular life that I see and the people and the families and the stories, it's so similar everywhere I go.
Mm,
So, yeah, in the Amazon, we had a snake encounter that was really terrifying. And yes, in Iran, we were really worried about being followed or having our phones tapped. So we were being extra careful. And that was stressful. But, there's nothing that matches, the idea I have before I go somewhere based on the
mm.
news that I read and the research I do from Western media.
Mhm, mhm. I love what you were saying about when you were going to different countries, there were just these similarities that you saw across different cultures. If you were gonna say that there's maybe a few universal truths, but maybe one universal truth that you've learned, about people across the world from different cultures, that kind of unifying thing, what would you say that universal truth is?
Everybody just wants the best for their kids. Everybody
Mm.
just wants the best for their family. Everybody's trying their darndest to give their kids, their community, the best that they can. and we have different resources, different ways of achieving that, but ultimately I just see the strive to like give your kids the best
Yeah.
you possibly can, and I see that everywhere I go, whether I'm in a refugee camp in DRC or in Hollywood Hills, like it doesn't matter. Everybody's just really trying to do the best for their kids.
Mm. And in your mind, what makes a good investigative journalist? Because you're talking to these people, they have to open up and trust you. So yeah, in your mind, what are those innate traits that one must have to be a good journalist?
You have to be incredibly curious. You have to have incredible intuition, and you have to absolutely never accept the first thing that's presented to you. So, all the opinions, all the different options, all the headlines and the research, you constantly have to be questioning and looking further. And you get better and better at that the more and more you do this. But
Mm,
I was gifted with incredible intuition and an ability to just understand people and just really transcend all kinds of circles. I mean, I can be in a homeless shelter and connect. I can be at a governor's ball. I've lived in all different kinds of like social circles and economic spectrums. And I can really find a way to just look someone in the eye and get
mhm,
very personal with them very quickly.
right. Mhm. And in this last year, which has, been so life-changing for so many people, what is it that it has taught you about yourself? Were there any tower moments for you?
Massively, yeah. We talked a little bit about my way of dealing with conflict or with friction was to become the astronaut, or when I was a passenger of life, sitting in the back seat and just having myself being driven to all these different landscapes. 2020 was the year that I took the wheel.
Mm,
And 2020 was the year that I finally came back down to earth from outer space and stepped right into the conflict and stepped right into the awkwardness and the friction and took space and
mm,
found ways to deal with it.
mhm.
I really kind of had a shift in my mind as to like, life doesn't happen to you, destiny doesn't happen to you, you create this. And that was mind blowing for me. It
Mhm.
came through a lot of tough lessons, but I'm sitting with a firm hand on the wheel. I got my favorite tunes on. It's definitely a convertible and it's a beautiful coastal road and I'm driving now, and that's a big shift for me.
What are you playing?
um I mean, you're going to laugh, but it's always drum and bass. it's
Really?
always it's
Yes.
always drum and bass.
That kind of music just moves through your body, though. You really feel that kind of music.
I think it's my regular rate. So I have
Mm,
kind of like a hummingbird heartbeat and sort of rhythm to me. And drum and bass to me is as relaxing as classical music. Like that's my
right,
regular speed.
right. Hummingbird, you said you have a hummingbird pace. Is that your spirit animal?
I mean, I've been told that I have a strong similarity to a hummingbird, but I feel like the first time I saw an animal in the wild that I felt like, oh, that represents something very strong for me
Mm,
was an owl when I was coming up the stairs from Wreck Beach. And the beautiful forest all around there in UBC. And I looked up and there was this beautiful owl just watching me. And I spent about an hour just watching it.
yeah.
That was the first time I felt like, okay, I understand this concept of spirit animal.
Mhm. I wanted to go back to something you said about being really intuitive, and the last time we caught up, you were showing me your tarot cards, and you've had them for a long time, and you read very often. And we started talking about our mutual interest in mysticism, and I'm curious about how that showed up for you in your life. How did you get into it?
I have intuitives in my family on both sides. Very, very strong. My mom is clairsentient and claircognitive, and my father, even though he would never admit it, even though because he's a man of science and rationale and logic, he is incredibly intuitive. His sister is a very, very well-known Turkish coffee reader and reads, with playing cards, and her readings are just unbelievable. So in my household, it was never taboo or looked down upon to have tarot cards or to be into any of this stuff. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, she's just like her aunt, or oh, she's just like her grandfather. And so I really was able to foster this without any shame, without any guilt. and practice and play. And
Mm.
I had free reign. My dad would roll his eyes. My mom would be like, "Oh, give me a reading. That's cool," and tell me all kinds of ghost stories because she has a lot of connection with the spirit world, which is something I've
Mhm.
chosen not to have. That's
Right.
not something I want to do with my intuitive gifts, but for her, she has a very strong connection with the spirit world. So I would hear all kinds of ghost stories and coincidence stories from her. So it was fertile ground, like completely fertile ground for me to grow this talent and to grow this gift, which I ultimately think everybody has inside of them.
Mhm. Yeah, it's whether you tap into it or not. Yeah.
Totally.
How do you continue to nurture it?
I mean, it was tarot for a good chunk of my life. I mean, I picked up my first deck of cards from Park Royal at the bookstore, and those cards got me through so many tough times. I first realized I had a gift when I wanted to go to Shambhala, the music
Yes.
festival in Nelson, and I didn't have enough money, and all of my friends were going. And my friends said, "Well, why don't you just bring your tarot cards and we'll make you a sign?" And we'll see if anybody wants a reading. I was like 18, 19 years old. So they made me this really amazing sign and they put it up front. And within like an hour, I had made the amount of the ticket and more. Like
No
people were
way.
crying. People were like so moved. It was such a weird experience for me to have this crowd of people around me. And that's when I realized, wow, this I can do something with this. I mean, moments was I when I was in school and needed to make some more money, I was definitely doing readings. When I was, moved to the UK and hadn't found journalism work yet, I was doing readings. It's kind
Mhm.
of been there for me all the time. This past year, I've kind of been shifting away from the cards and just working on channeling and
Mm.
opening myself up as a channel and
Mhm.
receiving messages and not using the cards so much. Some of my mentors and elders that I look up to have always said to me the second they've met me, "You don't need the cards, they're just a crutch."
Ah, yes.
So this
So
is the year that I put the crutch aside.
I see. Yeah, yeah. And the channeling, how do you channel the messages? Where do you hear them? Are they in your heart or do you actually hear words? How do they come to you?
It's a deep, deep knowing. It's just a really strong sense, or it's a visceral feeling. Like I'll suddenly get a cold shiver down my back, or just this wave of emotion come through me, or a sudden wave of energy. But it's a
Mhm.
deep, deep knowing and a strong sudden flash. If you know anything about the Enneagram,
Mhm.
I'm a 3, the
Mm.
achiever. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like the archer and it's like pulling back the bow and just choosing your aim. It's a very clear, sharp message. My intuition is like there's no second guessing. And when I know and I
Mm.
move forward.
Yeah. And you feel like you've lived on this earth many times before.
I think so. I don't know if I'm going to come back after this one,
This is your
but
master life. Yeah, this is the final.
It
Yeah.
could be, it could be. I know I've lived in this life many times as a man, so this is, living here as a woman in a very petite physique, a very feminine physique. That's, something I'm learning through this time around.
Mhm.
But I feel I've traveled a lot. I feel I've walked this earth quite a bit. I think every time is an absolute honor.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the last time we talked, we spoke about the concept of freedom, which is really important to you. Why is it so essential for your soul?
It's hard to describe, but I do feel inside of me an untamable animal, like this wild animal. It's always been in there. It's probably why I have such a strong connection with animals, particularly when I see them caged or being forced to perform or being forced out of their habitat. I take it really personally. It really affects me in a way that I can't describe. I feel there is this wild animal, a wolf, a horse, some kind of energy inside of me. And there are a lot of situations, a lot of like life moments that don't work for me. Like school is really tough for me. Like imagine putting
Mm,
a wild beast, a gorilla, whatever you want in a classroom for 8 hours a day and asked to focus on this board and on this person. That was really tough for me.
mm,
Um, certain friendship dynamics, certain family dynamics, a lot of work dynamics just make me feel suffocated. And so freedom has been like a North Star for me. I've built my life and in my entire existence around this North Star of freedom.
Mhm. But you're very rooted in LA now, right? It feels like a your home and your grounding.
I feel like I really blossomed here. I feel like a
Mm.
flower that was waiting for a long time to just erupt. And sometimes every spring, like one petal would come out or a little bit of, of a flowering would happen. But when I got out here, just it was a beautiful desert bloom. And that has served me in so many beautiful ways. It's challenged me as well. My time here feels really significant. It
Mm.
feels like home. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Do you feel like you've lived there before or just something about the city and where you are? It just feels good.
It's interesting that you ask. Lately I've been kind of deep diving on the concept of astrocartography or astrogeography. That
Mm.
there are some people who can not only read your astrology and your chart, but they can also apply that to the world and to the globe and to the beautiful world map and tell you based on, your birth time and birthplace and birth date, what parts of the world really chime for you, what parts of the world really work for you in different parts of your life. I mean, if somebody looked at my astrocartography, I am certain that they would say the United Kingdom is a very challenging ley line for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
But if you go there and if you spend time there, you're going to learn so much about yourself and you're going to learn to work really
Mm.
hard and how to get really clear. And if they looked at Los Angeles, they would just say, "Oh boy, this is like where your heart is just set on fire.
Yeah.
This is where your love line is. This is where your soul's destiny line is. This is where your creative line is."
Mm, mhm.
Other parts of the world have spoken to me in different ways, but yeah, I think Los Angeles it falls on my love line.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you bring it up. Someone very close to me, he did a Vedic astrology reading and then did a
Mm,
localities one, which is sounds very similar. So yeah, she read the energy lines of all of these places in the world, and Asia was really strong for him, which knowing him makes so much sense. Places had the Pluto line, so challenging, but it was very fascinating to see where you will blossom and where you will that feel like home, and then where are the places that will really transform you. So that's really
yeah, I
cool.
would I would love to have that kind of analysis. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
There's my curious mind like, wow. And not that you shouldn't go to the challenging places because I lived in a challenging ley line for 8 years of my life.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't take it back for anything, but man, did that place shape me. I'm
Yeah.
talking about the
The
UK.
UK.
Yeah.
What transformed you? What was so challenging about being there in the 8 years?
I was a complete fish out of water. I just couldn't beat match. I was culturally, personality-wise, like a bull in a china shop. And I just could not find the friendship circles, the community circles. I couldn't land. I just couldn't find my place. And it really just pushed me to come out of kind of a Vancouver flakiness that I had and a kind of wishy-washiness that I had learned, from my upbringing in the Pacific Northwest to really get clear on what I wanted and to work hard. I really worked the hardest I ever have in my life there. I learned discipline, I learned tenacity, I learned, boundaries. I learned all kinds of challenging things that forced me to really, really get clear on what it is that I'm here to do.
Right, right. And what was that one clarity that this is what I'm supposed to do?
It was just really like you're meant to be a boss and
Mm.
you're meant to work for yourself. And if you want that, you're gonna have to work really hard, which means you're gonna have to make some sacrifices. And if there is no social circle, there is no community that's here to kind of swoop you up and distract you with dinner parties and weddings and picnics and closeness, then hey, why don't you just work your butt off and
Mhm.
put yourself into your purpose.
Yeah.
And a life free of distractions really helped me achieve incredible things.
Mm. And you are now your own boss, aren't you? You've got, something that you're launching. Are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, it's very much still my baby, and it's really just sitting in the bassinet, and I'm really kind of like nurturing it and coddling it and giving it all the love it needs, and I'm not ready to just fully, like, take it out, in the stroller yet around the
Yeah.
city and show all the neighbors. But yeah, I'm working on really stepping into my own bossness as a storyteller, as a correspondent, as a journalist, as a director.
Mm.
That's what I can say. It's really, really exciting for
That
me.
is really exciting. I can't wait to hear more, so maybe we'll have to loop back once it's all
Yeah,
in motion and talk about your upcoming projects.
I would love that.
I would love that. I'd love to have you back. Um, what what would you tell young Guillory as the woman you are now? What would you tell her about life? If you were going to tell her 3 things, what would you say to her?
That I love you, and
Mm,
I'm sorry for everything that you're going through and that you've gone through, and that it's made you such strong and powerful force of nature, and one day you'll look back and understand. But in this moment, meeting young Guillory, like, I really, really love you, and I think the world of you, and I think you need to
mhm,
hear that more often, for sure.
mhm,
I would tell you the boundaries are key. Like, friends are great and showing up for people is great, but boundaries are key. And as much as you don't want to hear this, and it's going to be really confusing for you to hear this, family is everything. And I know you want to run away as far as possible from them because they make no sense and they really hurt. But family is absolutely everything. And the younger and the that you can tune into this and that this light can go off into your head, the more time you have to enjoy them because their time here on this planet is not forever.
mm, mhm, mm, that's beautiful. And, um, what is something that you would like to share with the next generation in all the work that you do and all the interesting stories that you uncover? You must see so much. And what would you like to say to I mean all of us about what you see that's happening in the world and what we should be aware of um, as humans?
Really, it kind of goes back to my mom's simple lesson that just like get outside. The all the spirituality and gurus and temples and moments of like knowing thyself that you're seeking out, like just step outside. It's all there. And if you start worshiping, the tree outside your house as much as you worship, the influencers on Instagram or, the musicians that you love. I mean, of course, they're brilliant. All of it's brilliant. It's expression. But if you really acknowledge how complex and simple and beautiful it is for this world to keep working, for you to take every breath, for that
Mm,
oxygen to be produced, for that water to trickle down. Like, if you really study that and understand it, you're going to be floored, and nothing else will ever compare. No handbag, no latest album, like, no trip around the world will ever compare to just like how beautiful it is, like the orchestra, the symphony that is just life, like just being alive, and all the things
mhm.
around us that are milling around trying to make this happen for you.
Right. And like you said earlier, just being present and in the moment of all of that happening all around you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not to say that, like, I feel like the next generation is obsessed with influencers and handbags and traveling. I really see an awakening happening at such a young age,
Mm.
in the next generation that gives me so much hope. It's probably the reason I say to you, I don't know if I'm gonna be back next time
Mm.
around. I don't know if I kind of feel like it's good. I look at the kids, I look at what's happening, I look at all the climate marches and the action and the way they're using the gifts of technology to use their voices. And I kind of feel like this is the first time my soul can rest and just be like, they got this.
Mm. It must be such a nice feeling for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I can have a bit of fun, a bit of fun now, and
I
just
hope
like,
so.
yeah. can
Maybe
I?
you'll
Can
come
I?
back as an animal and, and then you'll just be frolicking in
I mean, I
nature.
hope we leave a planet that I can frolic in. I mean,
Mm.
that's the thing is like I am an animal. So are you. Like we
Yes,
are
right?
we are animals, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that I think a lot of us forget. Like I did come back in this life as an animal. Um, And I hope that we leave a planet that we can keep frolicking in.
Mm. I was gonna ask, I know that you're a busy person. You had a long day, so I won't take too much of your time, any more than this. But my question was, are you hopeful for humanity? And it sounds like you are. So,
Yeah, and May, I've got all the time in the world for you. Come on.
mm.
This is just such a gift, this experience. 2020 was really, really interesting.
Mm.
The way that it woke people up, the challenge, the loss, the sadness, but the hope, the shift in perspectives. This is probably one of the most hopeful years that I've ever experienced. All the loss, all the humanity, all the humility. I really feel more hopeful now than I ever have, and that's come out of a lot of devastation.
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's all the wounds. Isn't it a Rumi quote? The wound is where the light gets in. And there's
yeah,
so many of us who have been broken by so many things, our own lives, our own stories, the things going on around us. Um, but I had, last week, um, felt really tough for me with all the things that are going on with the Asian hate crimes and, women not feeling safe. I don't know if you heard, but there's
yeah.
someone in Vancouver right now who's been stalking and following women in broad daylight. So there's this sense
Oh
of
God.
not being able to feel safe if you're walking around the city. But the most amazing thing that came out of a stressful week last week was how many people that I didn't expect to hear from out of the blue. And I will say this, maybe it's just my case, mostly men who reached out and said, I am not a woman and I am, I may not be Asian, depending on who the person was. But I want you to know that I am here to listen and I'm here for you. I'm trying to understand. And if you need me, I'm here. And people just not even just messaging, actually calling and just saying, I just want to make sure that you're doing okay. And my heart just swelled up so much at the end of last week to have that kind of connection with, just people who are just reaching out. And I don't think they would have done that before in the world. We want to call it the world before
Yeah,
this last year. And so it was just really beautiful and heartwarming and still brings, I'm all right. I'm kind of tearing up right now thinking about it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there is light, there's darkness, but there's a lot of light. And I think that
I'm really glad
it's
that you got
bright.
that wave of support. That's incredible, and that's the way
Mhm.
it should be. And
Mhm.
particularly from the guys, like yes,
Yeah.
that's really like hopeful and optimistic, and I'm really sorry for the sadness you're feeling, the hurt, the
Mm.
just not feeling safe in your own city, like I'm really sorry for that.
Yeah.
That's That's just a product of a lot of hurt, and
I
that's a lot
agree.
of a lot of healing that needs to happen. But,
Mhm.
we are reaching out to each other in ways that we haven't. Even myself,
Mm.
reaching out to people, like looking at neighbors, looking at my community in a way that I haven't before. So I think you're right. Something really shifted.
Yeah.
And I want to be around for a while to see this, I'm really excited about this.
Me too. Me too. And people are really dedicated, I find now more so to understanding themselves and their hurts and where their, you know, feelings and emotions are not aligned with their body anymore just because they've had to disassociate. And I'm just seeing this a lot in my sound therapy and sound healing practice where people are just they've been so hurt by so many things and from inheriting things through and stresses through epigenetics and they want to just feel in alignment with their emotions and body once again. And again, I think that's beautiful and as they heal, that ripple effect will go out energetically.
And how can we as this part of the sisterhood, how can we show up for each other better? Like, what are you noticing in your female relationships, in your friendships, like, with other women. Women are feeling particularly stressed by, the news and what's happening. Asian women are feeling really, really under a lot of pressure, and um, feeling a great amounts of intensity and just sadness. Like, how can we show up for you in a better way?
Well, the trend that I have been noticing is that a lot of the, I guess, clients that are coming in or women that I'm speaking to really want to feel their feminine energy again.
Mm,
Yeah. They feel like they've been operating in survival, striving mode for so long. If you are surrounded by like incredible women who are doing incredible things, entrepreneurial, just, really smart. Um, they want to get out of the mode of like always having to prove themselves, and they just want to be. They want to feel light. They want to feel creative. They want to feel radiant. They want to feel empowered. That's something that I'm seeing, and so I think that I've been um, yeah, trying to support my friends and other females that I'm talking to who want that in that. And some of it is simply, we learned how to do ecstatic dancing when I was taking my sound therapy certification. And that, for me, made me feel very feminine. And so I've just been passing that along. I've just been dancing every morning, and I can feel
oh,
that power. And so, yeah. So women are like, "Okay, I'm gonna give that a try."
that's
So
incredible. I do that
mhm.
too.
Do
I
you?
do. Oh yeah, I wake up. It's drum and bass. Okay, I'm not. I'm not going too far off script, but I start every morning with like music and movement, and it's really important. It feels
Mhm.
ancestral. It feels
Yes.
primitive. It feels like I'm tapping into something that, like, a rhythm of the earth that just like has been
Yes.
here and is not going anywhere and is
Yeah.
always available to me.
Mhm.
I love that. I really love that. I can really relate to the idea of feeling like you got to prove yourself as a woman, feeling like you got to put the boots on and really like get out there and flex your muscles and just achieve, achieve, achieve. And switching into your feminine power really is about magnetism for me, and just
Yes.
drawing to yourself what you need as opposed to constantly going out and conquering.
Yes.
That's a very colonial narrative. That's a
Mm.
very sort of patriarchal narrative, to constantly be conquering and taking down and like, um, yeah, man, you killed it today. Like, the languaging, everything about it is just
Mm.
so aggressive. You
Mhm.
step into your feminine power, which is a new practice for me as well. And I can feel what you mean. You draw to yourself,
Yes.
through a magnet inside of you. You draw everything you need.
Yeah, you attract and
Mm,
and you are more willing to receive as well. Instead of, like,
absolutely.
going out, it's like, no, it's coming to me, like you said, it's that magnet. So, I think it's wonderful that people want to, or women want to get back to that place of, attraction, like attracting those things that they want,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Mhm. So I have one final question for you. With what you do, what is it that you wanna leave behind in the world?
I made a promise, and a long time ago. I was on Thormanby Island when I was about 18, 19, with a group of friends, and we had done mushrooms and we were running around on the phosphorescence, and it was a psychedelic, beautiful um, experience at a time in my life where I was really lost and really didn't know where I was headed. And an image came through the clouds to me. To me, it looked like an indigenous elder man, but he could have been from any culture or from any background. He was definitely an elder, and in my culture, you always respect your elders. And I said to him, "It's so beautiful here. This planet is just so amazing." And he's like, "But this is under threat and it needs protection and we need you. Do we have your word?" And I know it sounds like, okay, Gil, you were running around, you know, completely tripping balls on mushrooms and just being a typical Vancouver teenager. I know a lot of Vancouver teenagers have this experience. This doesn't mean anything, but I'm a person of my word. and I gave him a promise. And from that moment, things started opening up in my career, in the environmental path, filmmaking path, and I kind of got to live out that promise. So I think the only thing I could say is that, like, be a person of your word,
Mm,
and I just like when I'm ready to pass, when it's my time, I can say, like, I kept my promise.
mm. Yeah, that's an honoring of yourself.
Yeah, when an elder asks something of you, like, you can't take that lightly.
No, you can't. Well, I know that you are making a huge impact through everything that you do and everything that you are. So thank you so much for your time.
Yes, and
And
thank you for tapping into your gift and creating this platform
oh,
and
thank you.
connecting through your voice and your throat chakra. I am so excited to see how this blossoms for you.
Thank you so much. I enjoy these conversations. I enjoy learning more about people that I already know. And I think I it's such an honor and it's a gift that I'm able to do it. So I can't wait to have you again on the
Yes,
craft sometime.
absolutely. Thank you for having me. And Vancouver, take care of each other, stay safe, take care of
Yeah.
your Asian sisters, take care of your women, people of color. Just really let's take care of each other.
Yes. Let's take care of each other. Have a
Yeah.
wonderful night.
Bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed that last conversation, be sure to check out more episodes of The Craft on Spotify and guest photo galleries on the website at wearethecraft.com. Thanks again for listening.